I wanted to share with you guys a Skype conversation I had with Keith Campbell, who has been following Antifa and the Patriot Prayer movement around for the last year or so. He tells his story better than I could. Anyways, we talk about an experience that he had in Berkeley where he was attacked by Antifa, who assumed that he was a Nazi because he was wearing a certain color and he was holding video equipment. And then we kind of process that situation and talk about the rhetoric and the current climate of America and try to find ways that we can possibly move forward as media makers and as ingestors of all of this media. So I hope you guys enjoy this. So, what happened in Berkeley?
Oh man. I'll give you a little backstory first. So since February, I have been filming Antifa, and in fact, a little before I had been watching videos, and watched Milo Yiannopoulos videos and
Yeah.
things, and so I was pretty intrigued, and I was really surprised that there are people that believe some of the things that they believe, like feminists and some like third wave feminists, and I thought, wow, that's really it's almost kind of crazy. And so then I heard that he was going to speak at UC Berkeley, and I thought, man, I want to, it's too late to get tickets, but I also heard that Antifa were going to be there and they were going to try to shut it down. So I thought, you know what, this could be huge. I got to go and find out what's going on, and Antifa actually ended up getting there before me, but they were basically just uh, tearing apart the school, smashing barricades through the student union and everything. And
Yeah.
I was kind of shocked. It's like, wow, this is Berkeley, and this is crazy. And so, from then on, I've been pretty much hanging out with their side and just blending in with them for like the last 7 months, from like Portland to Los Angeles and back.
Antifa.
And yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
and people have said, I'm crazy for doing this. I couldn't believe I would hang out with those guys. And, I've been spent hours and hours and hours and hours just surrounded by them. And
Mm-hmm.
I try to talk to them as much as I can, and try to find out like what they're thinking a little bit. For example, like in Portland, I said, well, hey, those guys, they want to have a dialogue and talk. And they're like, if they go over there, they're like, they would murder us right there, regardless of the cops there. And I'm like, okay. And I talked to a few more on the same thing. So I thought, okay, they're all being taught the same
Hmm.
ever. So
Yeah.
then I went over to another street where there are probably a couple thousand, like people from different unions and Socialist Workers Party and different citizens of Portland, and started asking them. It was kind of the same thing.
Hmm.
So then I really began to see like the power of mainstream media and how they were getting everybody whipped up, and
Hmm.
then they weren't calling people Nazis, but it was more like, okay, everyone's alt right if they support Trump, or maybe white nationalists, and then it's kind of just gone to the extreme of Nazis. But so
Hmm.
that's why I tend to hang with the opposite side, so I can try to learn a little bit more rather than hang with the people that I already know what they're going to say,
Yeah.
or for the most part. Of course, here I show up in Berkeley on the 27th, or actually on the 26th, that's in San Francisco. There was going to be a rally with Patriot Prayer, but they felt like it was a setup, so they canceled it. But BAM and Antifa marched that day all along Mission Street. So I marched with them for like 3 hours, just filming and just walking along. And eventually, someone from Refuse Fascism recognized me,
Hmm.
and then a whole group of Antifa spun out of the group and started for me. So I took off, and so that was kind of crazy. But
And when was that? What day was that?
that was Saturday, the day before the 26th, and that was like on Mission Street. And so a little close call. I called an Uber, got out of there, but you know, I didn't think much of it because I've been around them so much, and it's been really easy, and I've felt fairly comfortable. But so Sunday I show up way early, and I noticed then there's spotters in the neighborhood. at different corners watching, because they know that people park in the blocks below Martin Luther King to walk into the park. So then I go up to the park and it's like totally closed off. There's police everywhere. And I talk to them. They search my backpack and ask them, can I, have my monopod with my gear? And that's fine. And I go in, but they don't want anyone to have, any defensive gear, no padding, no nothing, no helmets, not even water, no bottles of water. Like, by the time that I left the park that day, there was a stack of water bottles, unsealed water bottles, probably about 4x4 by like 2.5 or 3 feet high, just a huge pile.
Yeah.
So no one could go in. It was like 85 degrees or higher, but we couldn't have water because some people use it as a weapon or put urine in it, or animal urine, or bleach.
Yeah.
It's always Antifa. They're always the ones who use that as a weapon, but we can't have water.
Huh.
So I go in, and there, after a while, no one's there really. Then people start gathering, and so after a while, there was probably 20 people there, maybe, and then the press
20,
was there.
20 people on which side?
People that were there advocating for free speech.
Okay.
Not all of them were Trump supporters. Some were just like maybe libertarians or people on the left that believed in upholding the First Amendment. And so they were giving interviews.
Yeah.
Mainstream media was there. Independent press was there. But there was a really heavy police presence not only around it but like inside too, mixing with everybody. So I thought, okay, nothing's going to happen. It'll be kind of a boring day. So I'm live streaming, walking around, and after a while, like a whole group of, I'm guessing 100, 150 or so Antifa with masks on come up to one of the only other entrance, which is on Milvia. And the police don't unmask them, even though there's an ordinance in California at gatherings you can't wear masks. But the police just let them stream right on in through, the whole mass of them, and mix with all of us. And I'm like, they have to know that there's going to be violence. I mean, given the 3 other times in Berkeley when we gathered, there was violence, if people wound up in the hospital. How can they not know? Everybody knows there's going to be violence, but they let them in. But police were still there, so immediately they started ejecting people. So they would identify someone, whether you had a Trump hat or a flag on your clothing or shirt or anything like that. If they identified you, they would, like, the mass block would surround them, and they'd be screaming and yelling like, Nazi, go home, Nazi, Nazi, all this kind of stuff. And I was right up with them. And so I would be filming, and they would, they didn't hit anybody or anything like that, because the police would come in, they would surround the person, and they'd be forced out of the park. So I'm right there getting really close up, video and things, and they just went from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, until there was almost nobody left that wasn't a journalist or wasn't, it was very few people. I didn't see any friendlies around me. And then pretty soon, like, the mass block of Antifa come up on Martin Luther King. So now there's just like, I don't know, 1,000. I have no idea. And they're just standing there, and BAM has their big truck with the speaker system that they take everywhere they go. But there's a lot of police. They're lined up in between. They're putting on like gas masks, and I'm thinking they have those guns that shoot like the pepper balls. So I thought, okay, they're just going to throw a couple canisters of whatever you call it, gas, and that they're going to clear the park. End of day. So I turn around to film some kind of an altercation or I don't know, something. And a few minutes later, I turn back around and the police are gone. I'm like, what the hell? Where'd they go? And they were all ready, and then they left. And then someone gets on the loudspeaker system and says, Berkeley PD has stood down, and then just like a sea of black just come right over the barriers into the park. And now they're starting to like beat on people as they get rid of the last few people that are there. Joey Gibson, his bodyguard, and one other guy got attacked. Guy hit one guy over the head. He dropped, and his bodyguard like literally just grabbed the guy, and so they got kind of beat around and ejected. But there were a few police that they got off to the one side or something. I guess they got away to safety. But I I noticed a mass of them went down Alston Way. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go see what they're doing. So I went down there with them. And there, I don't know, maybe there was like 100 or 50 or who knows. But so I'm down there filming and I'm surrounded by all these guys. And suddenly some guy just shouts something like there's that racist piece of shit or whatever who's doxing you guys and ruining your life. Something like that. And he's like pointing at me and I'm like, oh shit. And I thought that I really wasn't able to even hardly move before they hit me, but then I looked back at the video and it's like I actually maybe got 10 feet or something. I don't know. I mean, there's too many people to try to stay and fight. So I started to try to get out of there, and the first strike like hit my video camera monopod and knocked it out of my hand. But it still didn't click how much trouble I was in. I was like, I'd been lulled into such a false sense of security for doing this so long. I thought I was going to grab my camera, scoop it up, and just run. So I started to reach, and then the first like pole thing hit me over the head. And then I realized it was like a shock. I couldn't believe that they were attacking me. And then someone was like standing me up, and I could. Yeah. They had to mostly do it themselves. I really could hardly stand, and they pulled me up. And I thought, okay, they're going to get me up and stretch me out so they can really do the damage and finish me off. And I was surprised when they let me go or pushed me out of there or something like that. I didn't know all the things that were going on around me at the time, so I just started to run or hobble as much as I could away. And like 4 or 5 of them were still following me and yelling threats and things, so I turned down another street. And they were following this. As soon as I turned down the street, this like woman ran up to me and stuck a camera phone in my face and said, "What is it like to have your life saved by a black transgender person?" And I'm like, "Great, thanks." I mean, I had no idea what she was talking about. And then she left. And then here come 2 cop cars towards me, just slowly driving. And so this guy who watched it, he ran up to the cop cars right in front, and started pointing to me and said, "Hey, this guy, he just got his ass kicked. He needs help. He needs an ambulance. He needs a hospital." And they just slowly just drove right on by, ignoring him. And so then I kept going down the street and saw my car, but they're still, these guys are still there following me. And I thought, I don't know if they're going to decide to finish it now or what. If they see me get in the car, they don't know what I'm driving. But I thought if I drive, try to go around the block or to lose them, they might get bored and decide to go ahead and attack again. So I just ran for the car, got in, and left.
Yeah.
They could have prevented that first group of Antifa from coming and mixing with us. There were a lot of police there. Would have been no problem to throw a couple, gas grenade things, and boom, they'd have been gone. There's no way they could have come near the park. But they let them in. Even when that massive block of Antifa showed up, they weren't there with a whole bunch of gas masks. There was a few people that did, but by and large, they were not prepared to be breathing that kind of gas. They could have dropped a few of those, and they would have been scattered or down, and it would have been over. It's not like they didn't have the ability to repel it. They could have called in from different law enforcement agencies if they really wanted to stop.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure they would have had to have known that this was going to be really bad if they didn't do their job.
Okay, so in Charlottesville, there were white nationalists. What would you call the people who originally set up the Charlottesville?
Yeah, I would call them white nationalists, or even farther right, I think.
Even farther right than white nationalists?
I think so.
So racially motivated?
Yeah, because, I think a lot of white nationalists, I don't know if all of them, but a lot of them, even some alt-righters believe, in the whole Jewish thing and
anti-Jewish thing.
Huh?
Anti-Jewish.
Okay. And Israel doesn't have a right to exist as a state, and then you go, a little bit farther right, and you've got the Holocaust deniers or the Holocaust revisionist people, or Hitler was only making Germany great again, or that kind of thing. So I think some of those people were there I know that there were some people that were, don't believe in all that garbage that were there.
So there's certainly a white nationalist presence in the dialogue right now, right? So
Yeah,
that's a group, and like we can go through in shades with them, and then there's this free speech movement, like that's on the West Coast, right, with Joey Gibson, Patriot Prayer, and
and
do you
they're
think
always trying to attach themselves to that,
the white
despite
nationalists are trying to attach themselves to the free speech movement?
right, white
Okay.
nationalists, alt right, or anyone on the far right. They keep trying to attach. They keep getting disavowed. Some of them get thrown out. Remember when Jeremy Christian killed
Yeah.
those two people?
In Portland.
He tried to get into one of the Joey Gibson rallies. They
Yeah.
kicked him out.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, they're trying to attach themselves to the different things and
But the free
probably
speech movement is not doesn't want anything to do with that. They're fairly
no,
just
you know,
they have a different modus
right.
operandi.
And we're not going to try to prevent them from speaking. We believe they have a right to speak, but also we don't want to share like a microphone with them
Hmm.
because we don't believe in their ideology.
Okay. So so there's the white nationalists, and then there's the free speech movement. Is that the right thing to call it right now?
Yeah, yeah, patriot movement, free speech. Yeah,
Patriot
I mean,
movement. Okay.
because not all of the people that show up for free speech things are on the right. Some of them are libertarians or on the left.
Or the classical liberals. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And
Not a,
then there's probably another group like this more left-leaning group, and then there's Antifa. And
right,
Antifa wants to bundle the white nationalists with the free speech movement.
right. Basically, yeah. Anybody who and I think maybe part of it stems from the April 15th when people from Identity Europa were there. People from the Rise Above movement or RAM, they weren't called that before, but now they're RAM, Rise Above movement. So yeah, you had some guys from fairly far right that were there, kind of mixed in the crowd, but it wasn't a majority of the people. But the press saw that and go, well, like this is a far right movement, and
Hmm.
that's what all the headlines are reading. And it's like
Oh,
it
okay.
was the far left against the far right, and it wasn't about Trump supporters or people standing up for free speech. It was about the far right against the far left.
The Antifa have been sold this version of events or this narrative where the free speech people are just masking their white nationalism.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
is that accurate,
that's
you
that's a
think?
great way to put it. And now it's like rather than masking that, now we're masking being full blown Nazis,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's kind of escalated. And who knows where it goes from there? But yeah,
Like the Antifa people without like their ideology being cemented into reality, I assume that it'll just go into ridiculous proportions. Whereas if they started to have the ability to tie themselves into reality, so say the Antifa people are like, say, let's talk to these free speech people and see exactly what they think and then judge them. Like that's the only way for reality to re-enter their version of events because it
right,
seems like they're flying off the
right.
handle now. They're just beating you. I mean, were you when they were beating you, like how were you dressed? Did you have a flag on you? Like what was your
Yeah,
symbol?
I was kind of stupid.
Okay.
I did a lot of dumb things. Believe me. Yeah, I had such a false sense of security, and it's like
Huh.
because I'm never the one. I've never done any fighting. Of course, I didn't know that they found my YouTube channel and saw that I'd been filming with them the whole
Okay.
time.
Yeah. Okay.
If I'd known that, I would have thought twice about what I was doing, but didn't know that. The day before, I was dressed in like black, and I had a shirt on, which I usually wear, which says, um, "No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA," and which is one of their slogans. And I usually wear that, and
Yeah.
people see that and think that I'm on their side.
Yeah.
And if I wear black, then
Yeah.
I kind of can get in.
Yeah.
But I don't even have to wear that shirt, and I can get in anyway.
Yeah.
I try to like get in their head and empathize with them,
Hmm.
so I start feeling like I'm on their side. And if I do that, then I kind of am calm. I don't have any fear, and so they don't pick up on that and realize that I'm not on their side.
I think that's really interesting. That you blend in not just to get in with them, but to make yourself more empathetic with them. Is that correct? Like, so you feel closer to them so you can understand them better, so it works like on two levels?
I'm having a hard time with this one, but I don't believe that all of them are violent. In fact, I know that there are factions or different anarchist groups that they don't even get along. They can't stand each other.
Thens. I fucking hate Thens.
Some believe that violence is the only way. They don't believe in peaceful protest or anything like that. They believe in violence is the only way.
Yeah.
So when they need to do something like target someone, then they bring those guys in, they do their whatever, and then they go. So I'm sure that's what happened that day. It was all set up. They knew I was going to be there from social media, so because they figured out they tied my face with my social media. So they had been watching, they knew it, everything. It was all set up for me. I was like the trophy. I think a lot of them have been sold a bill of goods. You know, a lot of younger people, millennials, they're not taught what I was taught in school, so they don't know what happened, in the Soviet Union and all that, and about the gulags, and they don't know any of that history, and so it's very easy to indoctrinate them. Someone who's fairly smart can go in there and totally indoctrinate them in a fairly short period of time.
Yeah. I've seen some murmurs about the media kind of turning away from Antifa. Like Salon, who's like all about identity politics, like let's shame white people because it sells well, because white people love to feel shame. Like whatever makes us feel, we're up for. But now they're like, okay, well maybe we don't want to do identity politics. Maybe let's not do that stuff. So it could be the case that the tide of public perception is turning, or maybe it's turning both ways, because like they're sold that Trump is awful, and not just inept, but like malicious. And then you have Antifa, who's like, we're gonna destroy all the fascists, we're gonna punch the Nazis in the face, and if we don't find a Nazi, then we'll just call the person who is wearing the flag, the brightest flag, the Nazi, and go with there. So it seems like everything is, like you said, like whipped up into this fervor of where it seems like lightning needs to strike, because there's so much static electricity in the air. But my question is that people aren't starving. I mean, people have it relatively worse off than other people, right? But people don't have it that bad in our country. When you look outside of America, like people still want to come to America. So I wonder why we are going through this. It seems like a madness on a public level, where it's like we're getting all passionate, we're getting all angry, but like, what are we really angry about? Somebody else's opinions?
I see, and a lot of other people see, that it's like free speech is being attacked from all different sides, and I think it's a result of Marxist professors getting into the universities like whatever 30, 40 years ago, and I think they've been turning out social justice warriors for a long time, and it's really stepped up. I think I talked to you before about campus reform, who keeps their tabs on what's going on in the universities, and at the rate at which they spit out articles about the craziness at different colleges is just like ramping up, and the level of insanity is ramping up. And you've got universities have free speech zones where you can only have free speech at this particular zone or this particular time. You've got microaggressions, so you don't have to yell and scream or swear at anybody or insult somebody to cause a problem. It's like maybe you might look at them a little bit wrong. It's a microaggression.
Yeah.
Microaggressions, safe spaces.
Well, the thing about the safe space is that it's inverted now. Instead of having a safe space, like everything's the safe space. You can't do anything wrong anywhere else, except there's one place that's not the safe space now, Like it seems like that whole concept is inverted. Now we have the free speech zone where you can be not safe right here. We're safely making you unsafe. Do you think that the freedom of speech movement is trying to poke the hornet's nest? Do you think that they're totally innocent? Do you think that they just want to like have free speech, or do you think like there's a little bit of trying to be inciting?
um, yeah, I think that some people are probably not all that innocent, and there's arguments that, well, you guys should go to a conservative city, and hold kind of a rally, and I think,
Mm,
well, it would certainly be safer, and maybe that's what should be done. But then also, it's like, okay, there's kind of a battle right now for the First Amendment. So,
mm,
do you go, if you're in a battle, do you go where the enemy is or where the enemy is not? But what I do think is you've got to pick your battles,
okay.
and showing up every week at some place and doing a free speech rally or whatever you want to call it is not really a good idea. And I don't think you're going to really accomplish much. But pick your battles, like
Hmm.
trying to make sure that Ben Shapiro gets to speak, because there's been no conservative speakers all year at that school, or making sure Milo and the speakers there are coming. But I do think that some people probably go because they want trouble. And, one of the things that's happened to me since I got attacked was,
Yeah.
they bring up all these old tweets and stuff. And, I admit, I shit talk and more than I should.
Okay.
But who has never done that? And when I see, I'm very like emotional, very passionate, and so I see friends, people tweet me like bloody pictures of people that have been targeted,
Okay.
maybe going from a rally and barely survived, and or people being attacked. Some people I know, some people I don't know, and it makes me really angry. It's like, this shouldn't be happening. So I can't get on the phone and call these people. So I start tweeting out shit talk.
Okay.
And so they take that, put it up, put my first and last name so everybody knows. And then, okay, there's evidence that I went looking for a fight. I was trying to start a fight.
Okay.
Um, I'm not the victim here.
Mm-hmm.
Just all kind of stuff. Then you've got like left wing articles that wrote it was not the Antifa who attacked, but the far right or Nazis were going there and were starting the fights and attacking people. I'm like,
Hmm.
and I've looked at a lot of other video, and I don't see, you know, free speechers, whatever you want to call them, being the aggressors. But
Okay.
the left wing media is still trying to
Yeah.
paint that narrative, because mainstream media has kind of gone, okay, yeah, Antifa, they're bad. What they did was bad.
Hmm.
I don't think they believe that. I think that they're doing that because of pressure. Nancy Pelosi made a statement about Antifa and that what they did was bad, but before she was calling for blood. So she switched her stance. But again, I think she doesn't want any kind of a backlash now. So I don't believe that this is that they've had a change of heart.
Okay.
They're just doing that so there's no backlash against them.
Yeah, they're damage control. I'm going to psychologize a little bit, but like with you with your tweets, like you admit they like maybe I'm a little bit more incendiary than I need to. Maybe you shit talking, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that it might have something to do with our media, and it might have something to do with like where we need to say things in a way that other people can hear. So we have to speak kind of louder. We have to paint with brighter shades and really stark cartoonish hues in order to even have a connection with the dialogue. You have to have like this kind of, you have to make your voice heard and make it really, you have to make a stamp. And in our public discourse, it seems like there's not room for like subtlety, and there's not room for patience. There's not room for reflection. Like we're all kind of in reactionary mode.
One of the things that needs to happen, and this is going to be harder, but I think that independent journalists need to redouble their efforts to change the narrative or try and rewrite the narrative so that a lot of the damaging narrative that's out there, maybe we can change some of that, or I don't know if cover up is the right word, but at least get another narrative out there so people can listen to something else. People need to be out there, and it's going to be way more risky. I mean, literally, I can't go out there without, I would say, without at least 2 bodyguards, and then I would have to be careful because, you know, you get 100 Antifa coming after you and 2 or 3 bodyguards, you still aren't going to turn out very well.
Yeah.
So I'm not stopping, but I've just got to figure out, okay, how can I stay alive and still do what I feel very strongly about doing, and it's getting, you know, the word out and supporting free speech and stopping this trampling of our First Amendment rights.